Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Kaisar Hayat, Lecturer, Department of English, Kohat University of Science and Technology. Dear student, Assalamu alaikum. We are studying English Code 382 and today is the 13th lecture of our course, Research Method in Linguistics. The topic for today's class is Inductive and Deductive Research Approaches. Dear student, whenever we are doing research, when we are passing through the process of a research, when we are in the way to deduct or to conclude something, definitely we observe some paths, some ways, some plans. These plans, these ways, these methodologies are called approaches. Approach is actually the set of rules to be followed for a research. Research is actually a scientific way of investigating problems. These are the studies that are carried out through a scientific or systematic way. Data is collected, analyzed, and deducted later on. So these researches are researches are not possible just for the sake of doing. Research is a very careful job. We have to own some method and ways, some plan in our mind to adopt. Some approaches are already made by our skilled researcher. Theories are made somewhere, and somewhere we are doing in an area where there is not a lot of literature available. So the situation can be anyone, because this is the world of research where new knowledges are explored. We have to confront it with new areas. So the decision is yours that which approach you have to adopt. For today's class, I have selected two approaches that are included in your course content, and these are inductive and deductive research approaches. What is inductive research approach and what is deductive research approach? Where we have to adopt inductive, where we have to avoid inductive, where we have to select deductive, where we have to disown deductive. This is up to us. How would we decide a research area? A research problem would help us to decide that which type of approach we have to adopt for our research. So what are these approaches? What are these approaches? And how we have to select, how we have to adopt, and how we have to follow. These are the areas that we have to study, that we have to cover in our today's lecture. So let's go to our discussion agenda. In today's class, I would once again revise the definition of research for you, because the area in which you are working, that must be very well known, and you would be master in the area where you are doing now. You are in the world of research. I welcome you already, that now you are a deep knowledge explorer. Now you are working in the area which would give you new conclusion, and you are adding knowledges into the established knowledge or set of knowledges. So if you are exploring new words, definitely you must know that what is research and what is research approach. As in the start, I have said some words about the approach, that this is the method, this is the set of rules that you have to adopt. Actually, this is the way you have to adopt to reach to your destination of research. Now, inductive research method as well as deductive research method. So we have to work on these two methods. Let's start with the definition, that what is research. Research is already defined in front of you, and that is, this is a systematic investigation into and study of material and sources in order to establish fact and reach new conclusion. Dear student, this is a systematic investigation, and if this is a systematic investigation into a study or into a study of materials or into an area or into a problem, then definitely it would have some methods and methodologies to be adopted. It not mean that this is a systematic investigation and we just take our tool and start research and finish it. No. How can we do that? We have to follow some rules. We have to go on a way. We have to adopt in methods. So if we are not adopting a method, we are not going on a specified way, then how it be systematic? Systematic means that defined by the system already. So we have to follow the systemized, the actually authorized, the actually developed ways and methods. So in today's class, definitely these ways, these methods, these approaches, we have to study that help us to do our systematic investigation into a good way. So a research is the systematic investigation end-to-end study of material and sources in order to establish fact and reach new conclusions. After the research, this is your area of today's class, and that is the research approach. Approach means why, way, methods, set of thoughts, set of rules, plans that we have to adopt to do our research. Without an approach, it would be quite difficult to do research because research is a systematic phenomena. So for a systematic phenomena, an approach is necessary. Now let's see the definition, written definition. The research approach is a plan and procedure. Student, this is a plan that you have to follow. This is a procedure that you have to follow, and that consists of the steps of broad assumptions. Student, in research, assumption should not be new word for you because hypothesis you have studied already. So we assume the things, and the detailed method of data collections. We collect the data for research, then we have to analyze and later on interpret. It's therefore based on the nature of research problem being addressed. Student, research approach as mentioned in this slide is that this is a plan and procedure, and that plan and procedure would consist of some step through which we have to assume. There are some method through which we can collect data. There are some method through which we can analyze our data. And there are some methods and ways, plan and procedure, through which we can interpret our data. So, it's therefore based on the nature of research problem being addressed. This is very important, student, to know that which approach you have to select. Your research problems or your research area would define your need, that where you have to select inductive method or where you have to select deductive method. But before we say something more about deductive and inductive, let's enter into the slide that what is actually inductive methods, how we would do it, what are the steps of observation, how would we observe, how would we make plan for our observation, and so on. Let's define what is a research approach, and that is called inductive research approach. Student, when there is a little to no existent literature on a topic, it is common to perform inductive research because there is no theory to test. The inductive approach consists of 3 stages. Before I go to stages, let's take you back at the start of the definition. Inductive research method. When there is a little or no existing literature on a topic, the topic is actually research topic. It means that if you are doing a research in an area where there is very less known about the fact, there is very less literature available, or even there is no literature at all, what would you do then? Then you have to do inductive research approach. In this case, when there is no existing literature on a topic, just pick inductive research approach. And it is common to perform inductive research because there is no theory to testify. Student, what is theory? Theory is a supposition, that is a collected conclusion So if there is no literature available and there is no theory already made to testify, because in most of the research you do what? You take a theory, you follow a theory, and you tell that whether it's following or not. But in this case, when there is very less data available or no data available, definitely you would perform inductive research because there is no theory available. The inductive approach consists of 3 stages, and these stages are observation. The first stage is observation. Now, what is observation and why we are studying observation at this stage? Definitely these questions would be there in your mind. Let me try to clarify. Student, you are researcher now. Every one of you is a researcher. You are searching new knowledges. How you are searching new knowledges? Through research. How you are doing research? Through an approach. Which approach you have to adopt? Your research problem would tell you. So, if you are doing a research in an area, for example, if the problem is that a low-cost airline flight is delayed, you are sitting in an airport and you are very quite happy that the airline has charged you very less from Peshawar to Karachi, but there is some worries in your mind that low-cost airline flights delay. So this is an observation that you have in mind, and that is that low-cost airline flight delayed. The assumption, the observation is your, and that is low-cost airline is delayed. Be with me. This is just your observation. This observation would provide a base to your research. So the first observation, you observe that low-cost airline flight delayed. There is another observation, and that is dogs A and dog B have fleas. Dog white and dog red, suppose, have insect in their fur. Fleas, insect. So another is that elephant depend on water to exist. So these 3 observations you have made. Now let's see how would you work with these 3 observations. These observations are in your mind. These observations are a part of your thoughts now, and the observation are low-cost airline flight is delayed, dog A and B have fleas, and elephants depend on water to exist. Now, what would you do next? You would and you would observe a pattern now. The actual observation was maybe in scattered form. Now you have to make a pattern, and the pattern is generalized. Now let's see that 20 flights from low-cost airlines are delayed. That strengthens your observation that low-cost airlines always delay, because 20 flights from low-cost airline has delayed. All observed dog, whether white, whether red, whether A, whether B, all observed dogs have fleas. Okay, so the third is all observed animals, not only elephant, all observed animals depend on water to exist. See the inductive research methods. First of all, observation, then observe the pattern. Now you are observing a pattern, and after observing a pattern, you are developing a theory. Why? Student, in the initial definition, you studied that inductive research method is done where there is no literature or less literature available and there is no theory to testify. Now you are observing, you are making pattern of your observation, and now you are yourself developing a theory. And that is, low-cost airline always have delays. See the theories that you made. These theories based on your observations. First of all, you observe, and you observe sincerely, honestly, and then you make your observation pattern. And after your observation pattern, what happened that you develop a theory, and for the first case, airline delay case, the theory made is low-cost airline always have delays. Whether your theory is testified or not, that is another case. But you have developed a theory for the first case, and that is that low-cost airline always have delays. Now for the second case of dogs, all dogs have fleas. Again, the theory is all dogs have fleas. The third one is all biological life depend on water to exist. First of all, you observe an elephant, then you generalize it to animals, and now all biological life depend on water to exist. You have made your theories. You have developed your theories. These three areas, these theories now you can testify. Because initially you adopted inductive method because there was no theory to be testified. But now you are in a position that you have a theory to testify. Now you are free to do your research. Everything has merits and demerits. Same is the case with your research too. Your inductive approach has some limitation, and these limitations are that a conclusion drawn on the basis of inductive methods can never be proven, but it can be invalidated. Invalidated means that it would be invalid. It would make it invalid. A conclusion drawn on the basis of an inductive method can never be proven, but and can be invalidated. Student, the first limitation is that a conclusion that you would draw later on the basis of an inductive method can never be proven, can never be proved, but it can be invalidated. So this is the limitation. So let's see the example that you make it quite well understand. You observe that 1,000 flights from low-cost airline, all of them experience delay, which is in line with your theory. However, you can never prove that flight 1001 will also be delayed. Still, the larger your data set, the more reliable the conclusion. Student, now the example proven is that the limitation of the first one is that inductive method can never be proven. For example, if you have made some deduction, so make conclusion that won't be proven. That won't be proven because if you have concluded some conclusion, and that is that if 1,000 flights satisfy your theory, so it's not necessary that the 1001 flight would also follow this one. So this was an example that I hope that you have understood. So let's see to deductive research approach. Student, in inductive research approach, we have studied that this type of approach is adopted when there is no data or literature available, or less data, literature available, no theory there. You observe, you make observation pattern, and then you make theory. And limitation you have also studied. Now after inductive, there is another counterpart, and that is deductive. What is deductive research approach? Let's see what is the difference between deductive and inductive too. So the deductive research approach is that when conducting deductive research, you always start with a theory. Student, in the previous case, you were not in a position to have a theory, but now you always start with a theory. What is theory? The result of inductive research that you have. Reasoning deductively means testing these theories. If there is no theory yet, you cannot conduct deductive research. Quite easy, student. I hope your mind is working now on deductive and inductive. In inductive, you work on your observation. You yourself give theory. But in deductive, you are working on a theory. And deductively means you are testing these theories. If there is no theory in your hand on which you are working, No, there won't be any deductive research. Something else approach would be adopted. So it's necessary to have a theory in your hand to do deductive research. Now, the deductive research approach consists of 4 stages. In the earlier case, in inductive, how many stages were there? Yes, there were 3 stages. The first one was observation, the next was pattern observation, and the third was to make theory. Let's see what are the 4 stages in deductive research methods. Number 1. Start with an existing theory. Student, again, and again, I repeating that if you don't have a theory, please avoid deductive. Otherwise, the first stage would be missed and you would be not in a position to carry out your research. So the deductive research method start with the availability of theory, that you would have a theory in your hand and you would start with an existing theory. How? Low cost airline always have delays. This is the theory that you have developed in inductive approach yourself. That theory is based here, and that is that low cost airline always have delays, or low cost airline always have delays. All dogs have fleas. Yes, this is your theory there. And all biological life depend on water to exist. So what is the next stage right now? Now you have to formulate a hypothesis based on existing theory. What is hypothesis, student? A complete lecture I have sent to you on hypothesis. Let me remind you that hypothesis is a supposition that provide you base to proceed on. Now you would formulate a hypothesis, and that would based on existing theory that if passengers fly with a low cost airline, then they will always experience delays. This is the hypothesis that you have to testify. Where you have to testify? Through the theory that you have made. Now the hypothesis is in your hand, and that is if passengers fly with a low cost airline, then they will always experience delays. All pets dog in my apartment building, all pets dog in my department building have fleas. And all land mammal depend on water to exist. Student, these hypotheses are now developed, and definitely what would you do? You would definitely work on it to testify whether true, whether false. So hypothesis are suppositions, and you have made the supposition on the basis of your theories. Let's go further, but the next step, and that is that collect data to test the hypothesis. Student, remember your lecture of data collection and analysis. Now this is the stage where you would collect data to test the hypothesis. Hypothesis can never be testified through your words. This is not a word war. This is not just conversation. This is actuality that is issued through a systematic scientific way. So now you have made hypothesis, and that you have read your hypothesis. Now collect data to test the problem. Now you would take your data, your samples, data samples you would collect right now, and that is collect flight data of low cost airlines. Suppose in Pakistan there are many airlines, so here it's not quite appropriate to mention the name of anyone, which one is delaying, but you can, if you think, if your theory says that yes, some airline is delaying, so you can go to the general office, their offices, and you can collect data from there, that you would consult their flying schedule, and you would see that what is their departure time, what is their arrival time. If you go through a proper channel, definitely they would cooperate with you. So you would collect the related data now. Now you would, in the second case, you would test all dog in the building for fleas. You would take data and you would see that whether they have insect in their body or not. Now you would study all land mammal species to see if they depend on water. So now you would collect the data in this stage from your already made theories and then hypothesis. The fourth stage. Analyze the result. Does the data reject or support the hypothesis? Student, what was your hypothesis? Your hypothesis was that all low-cost airlines always delays in the first case. So you analyze the data here. In the third stage, you collected flight data of low-cost airlines and you generalize that what's the average. Yes, maybe occasionally or casually some days they have delayed, but maybe most of the time understudy flight company provide in-time services. So your hypothesis is not fulfilled now. But let's see what is the case. Let's see what is the case. Now you would analyze the data. And how would you analyze the data? 5 out of 100 flight of low-cost airline are not delayed. Student, you use the words always. So 5 out of 100 flight of low-cost airlines are not delayed. That can reject your hypothesis now. Because not always. Out of 100, 5 out of 100 flight of low-cost airlines are not delayed. In the second case, 10 out of 20 dogs didn't have fleas. Reject hypothesis. And all land mammal species depend on water. Support hypothesis. Student, this was the fourth stage. It's very interesting approaches that you are studying right now. Actually, you are following a method to reach at research. So, as a researcher, your hypothesis, some rejected and some supported. So, limitation. In inductive method, there were some limitation as well as in deductive method. Yes, there are some limitations because as I said that merits and demerits always there. So you have to select when there is no limitation and when where there is less limitation. The conclusion of deductive reasoning can only be true if all the premises set in the inductive study are true and the terms are clear. Student, all means all. If 5 out of 100 were not delayed, definitely that reject your hypothesis. So the limitation over here is that all means all should be well supported and 100%. In other words, I can say that if 100% correct the theory, the hypothesis based on inductive, so then you can say that your hypothesis is supported. Otherwise, the limitation is that won't be supported then. After it, example for the limitation is all dogs have fleas. This is premise. Definitely, maybe some dogs, like out of 10 in the last case, out of 10 out of 20 were not having that infection or that insect. So the conclusion of deductive reasoning can only be true if all the premises set in the inductive studies are true and the terms are clear. If the terms are not clear and the situations not support 100%, definitely it won't work. Beno is a dog, that is a premise. Beno has fleas, that is the conclusion. So and so on. Based on the premises, we have the conclusion must be true. So the limitation of the deductive approach is this one. Student, if the first premise turn out to be false, the conclusion would also be false. And the last, the Beno has fleas, this one, that won't be relied upon. So this is the limitation of deductive method. Student, I hope you have enjoyed your class and you have learned about the research approaches. Research approaches are that to do research you have to adopt some research approaches. Research approaches are the ways, methods, which one research approach you have to adopt that depend on your research problem. Thank you very much for being with me in the class.